The massive space station hung in the darkness like a glowing city. Nexus Prime stretched for miles in every direction, its silver walls covered with lights that blinked in patterns no human had ever seen before. Ships of strange shapes and sizes moved around it like metal fish swimming through space. Lieutenant Commander Lee Taman pressed his face against the small window of the human transport ship. This was it. The moment his people had dreamed about for decades. First contact with the Galactic Trade Federation. "Are you nervous?" asked Dr. Park Nara from the seat beside him. She was a small woman with kind eyes who studied alien life forms. Her hands shook slightly as she held her research tablet. "A little," Taman admitted. He was supposed to be brave. He was the leader of this mission, but looking at the enormous station made him feel very small. Kim Jisoo, their cultural expert, leaned forward from her seat behind them. "Remember what we practiced. Be polite. Show respect. Do not touch anything unless they say it is okay." The transport ship docked with a soft bump. Through the speakers came a voice speaking perfect English, though it sounded strange and musical. "Welcome, humans of Earth. Please follow the blue lights to the grand dining hall. Your introduction ceremony will begin in 1 standard hour." Taman took a deep breath and stood up. "Ready, team?" The airlock opened with a hiss. The 3 humans stepped onto Nexus Prime for the first time. The corridor was huge. The ceiling stretched up so high that Taman could barely see the top. The walls were covered with symbols and writings in dozens of different languages. Strange smells filled the air. Some were pleasant, like flowers. Others were sharp and metallic. They followed the blue lights on the floor. As they walked, they began to see other beings. Taman tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to look. A group of tall, thin creatures glided past them. Their skin looked like it was made of crystal, and it caught the light in rainbow patterns. These had to be the Xerians that Taman had read about in the mission files. Further down the hall, a creature that looked like a giant furry bear walked on 2 legs. It wore a shimmering robe and carried what looked like a staff made of twisted metal. Its eyes were large and golden. "Velcanti," Nara whispered. "I have studied their biology for months, but seeing one in person is amazing." They reached the grand dining hall and all 3 humans stopped walking. The room was enormous. The walls curved up and over their heads, creating a dome that showed images of stars and planets. Hundreds of beings moved around inside, representing species that humans had only seen in photographs. A being that looked like a walking tree approached them. Its bark-like skin was dark brown, and small leaves grew from its arms and shoulders. "Welcome, humans," it said in that same musical voice they had heard on the ship. "I am Growth Singer Yilan of the Forest Collective. We have prepared a feast to welcome you to our community." Taman bowed slightly as Jisoo had taught him. "Thank you, Growth Singer Yilan. We are honored to be here." "Come," Yilan said, gesturing with a branch-like arm. "Each species has brought their finest foods to share. It is our way of showing friendship." They followed Yilan deeper into the hall. Long tables stretched across the room, each one covered with foods that looked nothing like anything on Earth. Some dishes glowed with their own light. Others seemed to move slightly, as if they were still alive. The smells were overwhelming. At Kiel. The first table, Taman saw what looked like blue soup that sparkled like liquid starlight. The sign next to it had symbols he could not read, but there was an English translation below. "Xerion crystal broth contains healing properties." The next table held something that looked like bread, but it was bright red and seemed to pulse with warmth. "Kasek heat cakes, forged in solar furnaces," the sign read. Nara pulled out her scanner and began taking readings. Her eyes grew wide as she looked at the results. "Taman, these readings are incredible. Some of these foods contain minerals that do not exist on Earth. The nutritional content is off the charts." As they moved along the tables, more beings approached them. A reptilian creature with scales that shifted color introduced itself as Commander Sek of the Kasek Empire. A floating, jellyfish-like being that spoke through a translation device called itself Ocean Dream of the Deep Current Clan. Each species was curious about the humans. They asked questions about Earth, about human culture, about what humans like to eat. Taman, Nara, and Jisoo answered as best they could, but they felt out of place surrounded by such advanced civilizations. Then they reached a table that made Taman stop. On it sat what looked like ordinary purple fruits about the size of apples. They had a pleasant, sweet smell. After seeing so many strange foods, these looked almost normal. Taman reached out to pick one up. "Stop!" The shout came from across the room. A tall Zerion with crystal skin that glowed bright red hurried toward them. Other beings turned to look. The Zerion reached their table, breathing hard. Its crystal face showed what Taman thought might be panic. "You must not touch that," the Zerion said. "I am Elder Vorthak. That fruit is deadly poison." A crowd began to gather around them. Fuzara, the furry Velkanti they had seen earlier, nodded her large head. "The human does not know. Vorthak root is death to all who eat it. It dissolves the body from inside." Commander Sek's scales turned a darker color. "My people tried to eat Vorthak root 300 years ago. Thousands died before we learned it could not be consumed. Even we Kasek, who can eat molten rock, cannot survive Vorthak root." Ocean Dream pulsed with worried colors. "The acids in Vorthak root break down all organic tissue. No living creature can process it safely. It is the most dangerous food in the galaxy." Elder Vorthak placed a crystal hand on Taman's shoulder. "Please, young human, step away. Even touching it for too long can cause burns." Taman looked down at the innocent-looking purple fruit. It was hard to believe that something so normal-looking could be so dangerous. He stepped back from the table. "Thanks, you for the warning," he said. "We humans are still learning about galactic foods." Growth-singer Yilan's leaves rustled in what might have been relief. "Come. There are many safe and delicious foods for you to try. We do not want your first meal with us to be your last." As they moved away from the Vorthak root, Taman noticed Nara taking one more scan with her device. She caught his eye and gave him a small nod. Whatever she had discovered, it was important. The feast continued around them, but Taman found his eyes returning again and again to that table with the purple fruits. Something about the way the other species had reacted bothered him. It was not just fear. It was absolute certainty that Vorthak root meant death. But humans had survived on Earth by eating things that other animals could not. Plants that were poisonous to other mammals. Fungi that killed everything else that tried to consume them. What made these beings so sure that humans would react the same way they did? As the evening wore on and the celebration continued, one question kept returning to his mind. What if they were wrong? The human quarters on Nexus Prime were simple but comfortable. 3 sleeping areas connected to a main living space with a small food preparation unit and a table. The walls showed holographic images of Earth, making the room feel less alien. Dr. Park Nara sat at the table with her scanner spread out before her. Numbers and charts filled the small screen as she studied the readings she had taken during the feast. Her eyes moved quickly across the data, and her expression grew more puzzled with each passing minute. "This does not make sense," she said quietly. Taman looked up from his mission reports. "What does not make sense?" "The Vorthak root readings." Nara turned the scanner so Taman and Jisoo could see the screen. "Look at this nutritional analysis. The UI data showed a fruit rich in proteins, vitamins, and minerals that humans needed. The readings indicated high levels of iron, calcium, and several amino acids that were rare in most foods. It looks like a perfect food source," Jisoo said, leaning closer to read the display. "Are you sure the scanner is working correctly?" Nara ran a diagnostic check on her equipment. "The scanner is fine, but look at this." She pointed to another section of the display. "These compounds here are the ones that supposedly dissolve organic tissue." Taman studied the chemical formulas. He was not a scientist, but he had basic training in xenobiology for his diplomatic work. "What exactly are these compounds?" "They are enzymes," Nara explained. "Very powerful ones. In most alien biology, these would break down cellular walls and cause immediate tissue damage. But here is what I find interesting." She pulled up another screen. "These same types of enzymes exist in many foods that humans eat regularly on Earth." "What do you mean?" Jisoo asked. Pineapple contains enzymes that break down proteins. Raw meat has enzymes that would be toxic to many herbivorous species. Even common vegetables like onions and garlic contain compounds that are poisonous to many earth animals. Nara's voice grew excited as she explained. Humans have evolved to handle these compounds. Our digestive system neutralizes them or even benefits from them. Taemin sat back in his chair. So you think humans might be able to eat Vorthak root safely? I think it is possible, Nara said. But I cannot be certain without testing. Testing? Jisoo's voice rose with alarm. You want to test deadly poison on ourselves? Not deadly poison, Nara corrected. A substance that is deadly to other species. There is a difference. Taemin stood up and walked to the small window that looked out into space. Ships moved past in the distance, carrying beings from dozens of different worlds. Each species had evolved differently, adapted to different environments, developed different ways of surviving. Earth was a dangerous planet, he said slowly. Our ancestors ate plants that killed other animals. They consumed meat that was rotting. They found ways to process foods that no other creature could handle. Exactly, Nara said. Human digestive systems are incredibly robust compared to most species we have encountered. We produce strong stomach acid, have extensive gut bacteria, and possess enzymes that many other species lack. Jisoo shook her head. But what if you are wrong? What if Vorthak root really is deadly to all life, including humans? The diplomatic mission would be over. Earth would lose its chance to join the galactic community. And what if we are right? Taemin asked. What if humans can safely consume foods that the rest of the galaxy considers poison? Think about what that could mean. The three humans sat in silence for several minutes. Outside their window, Nexus Prime continued its slow rotation, bringing new views of the starfield beyond. Finally, Taemin made his decision. I am going to try it. Taemin, no. Jisoo grabbed his arm. This is too dangerous. Someone has to be first, he said. I am the mission commander. If anyone is going to take this risk, it should be me. Nara was already packing her scanner. If you are determined to do this, we need to be smart about it. A very small piece first. I will monitor your vital signs constantly. And if something goes wrong? Jisoo asked. Then we learn something important about human biology, Taemin said. And hopefully we survive long enough to warn other humans not to try it. They waited until the station entered its sleep cycle. Most of the beings aboard followed different daily rhythms, but there were always quiet periods when fewer creatures moved through the corridors. The three humans made their way back to the grand dining hall. Emergency lighting cast long shadows across the empty room. The feast tables were still there, covered with protective fields to keep the food fresh. Taemin approached the table with the Vorthak root. The purple fruits looked harmless in the dim light. He could smell their sweet aroma even through the protective field. Last chance to change your mind, Jisoo whispered. Taemin shook his head. He reached through the field and picked up one of the smaller fruits. It felt normal in his hand, like any fruit from Earth. The skin was smooth and slightly warm. Nara held her scanner ready, pointed at Taemin. Baseline readings normal. Heart rate slightly elevated, but that is expected. Taemin examined the fruit carefully. He could see small seeds through the translucent purple skin. Juice glistened where his thumb had pressed against the surface. Here goes nothing, he said. He took a small bite. The taste hit him immediately, sharp and bitter at first, like biting into a raw lemon. Then came a metallic aftertaste that made his tongue tingle. The fruit was juicy, and the liquid seemed to make his mouth feel slightly numb. Nara watched her scanner intently. Heart rate increasing. Brain activity spiking, but no signs of tissue damage. Taemin swallowed the small piece of fruit. It went down easily, leaving that strange metallic taste in his mouth. He waited. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 5. How do you feel? Jisoo asked nervously. Strange, Taemin admitted, but not sick. Actually, I feel... He paused, trying to find the right words. I feel more awake, more alert. Nara's scanner began beeping rapidly. Taemin, look at these readings. Your neural activity has increased by 20%. Your reflexes are testing faster than baseline. And that small cut on your hand from yesterday is healing visibly faster than it should. They all looked at his hand. The tiny cut from when he had scraped it on the ship's door was indeed closing more rapidly than normal. I need to try a piece, Nara said suddenly. Absolutely not, Jizu protested. If this is real, if humans can process Vorthak root safely, I need to verify it with multiple subjects, Nara argued. One test proves nothing. We need data. Before anyone could stop her, she took a small bite from the same fruit. Her reaction was similar to Taemin's. The bitter taste, the metallic aftertaste, the tingling sensation. But like Taemin, she showed no signs of the tissue damage that should have killed her within minutes. Jisoo, Nara said after swallowing. You need to try this too. I am not eating poison fruit, Jisoo said firmly. It is not poison to us, Taemin said. He was feeling remarkably good now. His thinking seemed clearer, his energy levels higher than they had been since arriving on the station. At least it does not seem to be poison to humans. After 20 minutes of observation and gentle persuasion, Jisoo finally agreed to take the smallest possible bite. Her reaction matched the others perfectly. We need to keep this secret, Taemin said as they prepared to return to their quarters. Until we understand what this means, we cannot let anyone know what we have discovered. Agreed, Nara said. But Taemin, do you realize what this could mean? If humans can safely consume foods that the entire galaxy considers deadly poison, we might have access to resources that no other species can use. As they walked back through the empty corridors, Taemin felt the enhanced alertness from the Vorthak root still flowing through his system. His mind was racing with possibilities, but also with questions. How many other poisonous foods might humans be able to consume? What would the other species think if they learned about this? And most importantly, what would this discovery mean for humanity's place in the galaxy? One thing was certain. Everything had changed the moment he took that first bite. 3 days had passed since the humans first tasted Vorthak root. Taemin tried to act normal during their diplomatic meetings, but it was difficult. The enhanced mental clarity from the fruit had lasted for hours. His reflexes remained sharper than usual, and the cut on his hand had healed completely overnight. Dr. Park Nara spent most of her time running secret tests on the remaining pieces of Vorthak root they had taken. She worked quietly in their quarters while Taemin and Jisoo attended cultural exchange meetings with various alien species. The biochemistry is fascinating, Nara told them during their evening briefing. The enzymes that dissolve alien tissue actually strengthen human cellular walls. It is like the fruit was designed specifically for human biology. Kim Jisoo remained worried. What if someone discovers what we did? The other species would think, we are crazy for eating poison. Or they would think we are lying. Taemin added. Either way, it could damage our diplomatic relations. A soft chime from their door interrupted the conversation. Taemin opened it to find a strange creature standing in the hallway. It had 6 arms, purple skin covered in small scales, and large yellow eyes that seemed to look in different directions at once. Greetings, humans, the creature said in heavily accented English. I am Skex. I deal in information and rare materials. May I enter? Taemin glanced at his team. What kind of information? Information about your recent dietary experiments, Skex said with what might have been a smile. And information about other foods you might find interesting. The 3 humans exchanged worried looks. Jisoo shook her head slightly, but Taemin made a decision. Come in. Skex entered their quarters and looked around carefully. Nice accommodations. The Federation treats new species well. He settled into a chair, his 6 arms moving constantly as he spoke. What do you know about our dietary experiments? Nara asked cautiously. I know that 3 nights ago, 3 humans entered the grand dining hall during sleep cycle. I know that biological matter consistent with Vorthak root was later detected in your waste disposal unit. I know that all 3 of you showed elevated biosignatures the following day. Taman felt his heart rate increase. You have been spying on us? I spy on everyone, Skek said cheerfully. It is my business. But do not worry. I am not here to expose you. I am here to help you. Help us how? Jisoo asked. Skeks reached into a pouch on his belt and pulled out a small device. I have been tracking human waste disposal since you arrived. Very interesting patterns. Forthak root was not the only unusual organic matter your systems have processed. He activated the device, and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed a list of substances that made Nara gasp. Kasek heat fruit residue, Velcanti, grain compounds, Sirion crystal fragments, even traces of Ancheri spice extracts. Skex's eyes gleamed. Either humans are the most careless eaters in the galaxy, or you can consume substances that would kill most other species. We have not eaten those things, Taman said quickly. No, but your food preparation unit has processed them. Cross-contamination during the welcome feast, perhaps. But here is the interesting part. Skeks manipulated the display. Your digestive enzymes broke down these compounds completely. No toxic accumulation. No cellular damage indicators. Nara leaned forward, studying the data. This is impossible. These readings suggest we could safely eat foods from dozens of different species. Exactly, Skek said, which is why I want to show you something. Follow me. Against their better judgment, the three humans followed Skeks through the station's corridors. He led them to service elevators that took them deep into the lower levels of Nexus Prime. The lower levels were darker and less maintained than the upper sections. Strange smells filled the air. Pipes and cables ran along the walls, and the sound of machinery echoed from all directions. Where are we going? Jisoo asked nervously. The recycling center, Skeks explained, where the station processes waste from all the different species. Very educational place for someone studying galactic dietary habits. They entered a vast chamber filled with processing equipment. Conveyor belts carried different types of waste to various sorting machines. The air was thick with chemical smells and steam from the processing units. This is where I discovered your secret, Skek said, leading them to a monitoring station. I track waste streams for valuable materials that species throw away. When I saw human waste breaking down substances that should be impossible to digest, I became very interested. He showed them data streams from dozens of different species. Each one showed clear patterns of what foods they could and could not process. Look at this, Skek said, pointing to the Velcanti data. They cannot process simple sugars that humans eat regularly. Their waste shows toxic buildup from fruits that you consider perfectly safe. And here, he continued, moving to another display. Kasek waste cannot break down basic plant proteins. They need high-temperature chemical processing for most organic compounds. Finally, he showed them the human data stream. But humans, he said with obvious excitement, humans process everything. Foods that are poison to every other known species break down completely in your systems. Nara studied the displays with growing amazement. This suggests humans could survive on dozens of different worlds using local food sources that other species cannot touch. Exactly. Skex's excitement was obvious. Do you understand what this means economically? Taman was beginning to see the implications. Worlds that are considered worthless because of their toxic plant life could become valuable to humans. More than valuable, Skeks said. There are entire planets where precious materials grow wild, but no species can harvest them safely because the plants are too dangerous to eat. Worlds rich in rare minerals that exist only in biological forms that are deadly to consume. Pulled up star charts showing dozens of planetary systems. All of these worlds have been surveyed and abandoned. The plant life is too toxic, the food source is too dangerous. But if humans can eat these plants safely, we could establish colonies where no other species can survive, Jisoo finished. And, Skeks added with a grin, you could process these toxic biologicals into safe nutritional supplements for other species. The entire galaxy depends on expensive synthetic nutrients because most natural food sources are poisonous to most species. Nara was frantically taking notes on her scanner. We would need to run extensive tests, verify that humans can actually consume these foods safely, study the long-term effects. Of course, Skex agreed. But consider this. I have access to small samples of biologicals from over 200 different worlds, all considered deadly poison by galactic standards. If you are willing to test them. You want us to be test subjects for alien poison, Taman said. I want you to discover that you are immune to alien poison, Skex corrected. And then I want to help you become very wealthy by turning that immunity into an advantage. The three humans looked at each other. They had come to make peaceful contact with galactic civilization. Instead, they had stumbled onto a discovery that could change everything. What do you get out of this? Taman asked. Partnership, Skex said simply. Exclusive trading rights for the first human colonies on toxic worlds. A percentage of profits from human processed nutritional supplements, and the satisfaction of watching the galactic economy transform when everyone realizes that humans can eat anything. As they rode the elevator back to the upper levels, Taman's mind raced with possibilities. Humanity had always survived by adapting to harsh environments and eating foods that other creatures could not. Now it seemed that trade could make them the most valuable species in the galaxy. What do you think? He asked his companions. I think, Nara said slowly, that we are about to make history. 2 weeks later, Dr. Choi Minho arrived on Nexus Prime aboard the second human transport. He was a small man with quick eyes and a mind that understood money better than most people understood breathing. When Taman explained their discovery about human dietary abilities, Minho immediately saw what the others had missed. You are thinking too small, he said as he studied Nara's test results in their expanded quarters. This is not just about humans eating different foods. This is about completely changing how the galaxy thinks about resources. What do you mean? Asked Jisoo. Minho pulled up economic data on his portable computer. Look at these trade numbers. The galaxy spends billions of credits every year on synthetic nutrition because natural food sources are too dangerous. Entire star systems are marked as worthless because their biological resources cannot be safely harvested. He showed them shipping manifests and trade routes. Food security is the biggest limitation on galactic expansion. Species cannot colonize worlds where they cannot eat the local food sources safely. They must import everything, making colonization extremely expensive. Taman began to understand. But if humans can eat local food sources safely, then humans can establish colonies anywhere, Minho finished. And more importantly, humans can harvest biological resources that other species need, but cannot safely obtain themselves. Nara had been conducting careful tests with Skex's samples for the past 2 weeks. Her results were extraordinary. I have tested materials from 47 different worlds, she reported. Humans show no negative reactions to any of them. In fact, many provide nutritional benefits that do not exist in Earth foods. Show him the Cossack heat fruit results, Taman suggested. Nara pulled up her data. Cossack heat fruits contain minerals that strengthen bone density and improve neural conductivity. They taste like spicy peppers to humans, but they generate enough heat to melt most organic tissue. Cossack cannot eat them raw. They must be processed in industrial furnaces. And the Velcanti grain? Minho asked. Fermented Velcanti grain causes severe allergic reactions in most species, Nara explained. To humans, it tastes like sourdough bread. The fermentation process actually creates vitamins that humans need but cannot produce naturally. Minho nodded as he processed this information. We need to approach this systematically. First, we establish proof of concept with controlled demonstrations. Then we begin negotiations for resource rights. Negotiations with whom? Jisoo asked. With everyone, Minho said. But we start with species that have the most to gain from partnership with humans. 3 days later, they held their first formal demonstration. Minho had convinced Elder Vorthak of the Zirians to attend, along with Commander Sek of the Cossack and Fuzara of the Velcanti. The meeting took place in a conference room with full medical monitoring equipment. Dr. Nara had prepared samples of foods that each species considered absolutely deadly. This is extremely dangerous, Elder Vorthak warned as he watched Taman prepare to eat a Zarian crystal formation. Those crystals dissolve organic compounds on contact. We appreciate your concern, Minho said politely, but we believe humans may have unique physiological advantages that allow us to safely consume materials that are toxic to other species. Commander Sek's scales showed dark patterns of skepticism. No species can eat raw heat fruit. The thermal output alone should kill you. Only one way to find out, Taman said. He bit into the crystal formation. The taste was like sucking on a battery. Sharp, metallic, with an electric sensation that made his teeth ache. But he felt no pain, no burning, no tissue damage. After chewing and swallowing, he waited. The monitoring equipment showed elevated neural activity and improved bone density measurements. No negative effects appeared. Impossible, whispered Fuzara. The crystals should have dissolved your mouth and throat. Next, Nara ate a piece of Cossack heat fruit. The fruit was literally glowing with internal heat. When she bit into it, steam rose from the juice, but she showed no signs of burning. It is spicy, she said, but not painful, like eating a very hot pepper. Finally, Jisoo consumed fermented Velcanti grain that had been aged for 6 months. The grain was covered with a fuzzy mold that the Velcanti considered extremely toxic. It tastes like cheese, Jisoo reported. Sharp, but pleasant. The 3 alien representatives stared at the humans in shock. All the monitoring equipment confirmed that the humans were not only surviving, but actually benefiting from consuming the supposedly deadly foods. How is this possible? Elder Vorthak asked. Human evolution, Nara explained. Humans developed on a world where many food sources were toxic to other species. We evolved extremely robust digestive systems and powerful detoxification abilities. Commander, Sek leaned forward. If this is true, if humans can safely consume materials that are poison to the rest of us, then you could harvest resources from worlds that we cannot touch. That is exactly what we are suggesting, Minho said. Partnership agreements. Humans establish colonies on worlds with toxic biological resources. We harvest materials that other species need, but cannot safely obtain. Everyone benefits. Over. The following weeks, word spread through Nexus Prime about the humans who could eat poison. Representatives from dozens of species requested private meetings. Some were skeptical, others were fascinated. A few were frightened by the implications. Ambassador Veltar of the Anchari Consortium was one of the skeptics. This is impossible, she insisted during a meeting in her ornate chambers. No species can consume industrial toxins safely. You must be using some kind of medical technology to neutralize the poisons. We are willing to submit to any medical examination you require, Taman offered. Full biological scans, genetic analysis, whatever will convince you that this is natural human physiology. The tests took 3 days. Anchari medical technology was the most advanced in the galaxy. They scanned human DNA, analyzed digestive, enzymes, and studied cellular structures. The results left them stunned. Your species is a biological impossibility, the chief Anchari scientist reported. You produce enzymes that no other known species possesses. Your stomach acid is strong, enough to break down materials we use for industrial applications. Your liver processes toxins that would kill most species in minutes. And this is all natural? Ambassador Veltar asked. Completely natural. The humans have not been modified or enhanced in any way. This is simply how their species evolved. News of the medical examination results spread quickly through the diplomatic community. Suddenly, every species representative wanted to discuss potential partnerships with the humans. Captain Song Hyejin arrived from Earth just as negotiations began to intensify. She commanded a merchant vessel called Soul's Pride and had experience in interstellar trade negotiations. I understand you need someone who knows how to make deals, she said when Minho briefed her on the situation. We need someone who can negotiate agreements that benefit both humans and our potential partners, Minho explained. This could be the foundation of Earth's entire relationship with galactic civilization. Song proved to be exactly what they needed. Within days, she had negotiated the first formal agreement between humans and an alien species regarding toxic biological resources. The contract was with the Xerian Collective. They granted humans exclusive harvesting rights to 17 planets, rich in crystal formations that contained rare minerals. In exchange, humans would process the crystals into safe synthetic nutrients that the Xerians needed for their metabolism. "This is just the beginning," Song told the team as they celebrated their first major trade agreement. "Once other species see the profits from this partnership, everyone will want similar deals." She was right. Within a month, the Kasek Empire signed an agreement for heat fruit harvesting rights on 12 volcanic worlds. The Velcanti Federation negotiated grain processing contracts for 6 agricultural planets where the crops were too toxic for normal species to handle. Each agreement followed the same pattern. Humans gained access to worlds that other species considered worthless due to their toxic biology. In return, humans processed those biological resources into products that the alien species needed, but could not safely obtain themselves. "We are not just joining galactic civilization," Taman realized as he watched shipping contracts being signed. "We are becoming essential to it." Dr. Nara, now officially appointed as Human Galactic Food Safety Coordinator, was busy studying samples from over 100 different worlds. Her preliminary results suggested humans could safely colonize and harvest resources from nearly 80% of the galaxy's surveyed worlds. Other species have been limited to colonizing worlds with compatible biology, she explained during a briefing with Earth Command. "Humans appear to have no such limitations. We can establish colonies anywhere there is biological matter to consume." The implications were staggering. Humanity, the newest species to join galactic civilization, had suddenly become one of the most valuable members of the community. "What happens now?" Jisoo asked as they prepared for the next phase of negotiations. "Now," said Minho with a smile, "we change the galaxy." 6 months after the first taste of Vorthak root, Nexus Prime buzzed with unprecedented activity. Representatives from 42 different species had gathered for an event that had never occurred before in galactic history. The First Galactic Integration Feast. The grand dining hall had been transformed into something magnificent. Tables arranged in a great spiral pattern filled the enormous space. Each table represented a different world, decorated with holographic displays showing landscapes that most species had never seen, because they were too dangerous to visit. Chef Kim Dae-hyun had arrived from Earth 2 weeks earlier with a team of culinary specialists. He was a master of fusion cuisine, who had spent years studying how different food preparation methods could make dangerous ingredients safe and delicious. When he learned about human dietary abilities, he immediately volunteered for the most challenging cooking assignment in galactic history. "I have prepared a 7-course meal," he announced to the assembled representatives. "Each course features ingredients that are considered deadly poison by at least one species present. All ingredients have been harvested by human colonists from worlds that were previously considered uninhabitable." Elder Vorthak of the Xerians sat at the head table, his crystal form flickering with nervous energy. "Are you certain this is safe? Some of these ingredients have killed thousands of our people throughout history." "For humans, yes, it is safe," Dr. Park Nara assured him. She wore her official uniform as Human Galactic Food Safety Coordinator, a position that had been created specifically for her expertise. "We have tested every ingredient extensively. Humans can consume all of these materials without harm." Commander Sek of the Kasek Empire shifted uncomfortably in his specially designed heat-resistant chair. "This still seems like madness. Why risk your lives to prove a point we already accept?" "Because," said Ambassador Taman, now promoted from his original diplomatic role, "understanding leads to cooperation. When you see humans consume these foods safely, you understand that our species offers unique capabilities for galactic expansion." Fuzara, of the Velcanti Federation, nodded her large furry head. "The human colonies on our abandoned worlds have already produced more resources in 6 months than we managed in 50 years of attempts. But watching you eat what we consider poison still frightens us. Captain Song Heejin, who had negotiated most of the trade agreements, smiled reassuringly. Fear is natural, but today is about celebrating what we can accomplish together. Chef Daehyun and his team began serving the first course. Small purple fruits cut into elegant slices and arranged with crystalline formations and heated stones. Vorthak, root prepared 3 ways, Daehyun announced. Fresh sliced, fermented into a paste, and crystallized with Zerion minerals. The fermentation process enhances the nutritional value, while the crystallization creates unique flavor combinations. The alien representatives watched in fascinated horror as the human delegation began eating. Taemin bit into the fresh Vorthak, root first, savoring the sharp, bitter taste that had become familiar over the months. The crystallized version has an interesting electric sensation, Dr. Nara commented as she tried the mineral-enhanced preparation. The Zerion crystals add a sparking quality to the flavor. Jisoo tried the fermented paste spread on a piece of Velcanti grain bread. This combination is excellent. The fermentation makes the Vorthak root taste almost sweet. Ocean Dream of the Deep Current clan pulsed with worried colors. My species lost an entire research colony to Vorthak root contamination. Watching you eat it freely is difficult to process. We understand, Taemin said gently. But consider this. Human colonies can now harvest Vorthak root safely and process it into the synthetic nutrients your people need. The resource that once threatened your species now helps sustain them. The second course featured kasek heat fruits, prepared as a curry with spices from 6 different worlds. Steam rose from the dishes as they were served, and the temperature was high enough that the plates had to be specially treated to avoid cracking. Chef Daehyun ladled the glowing curry over grains that sparkled with their own bioluminescence. Heat fruit curry with stellar grains from the Vega system. The grains are toxic to most carbon-based life, but they provide humans with amino acids that do not exist in Earth foods. Commander Sek's scales showed deep patterns of amazement as he watched the humans eat food that was literally hot enough to melt metal. The thermal output should be destroying your mouth and throat, he said. It is spicy, admitted Captain Song between bites, but not painful. Human tolerance for capsaicin-like compounds is quite high. This reminds me of dishes from my home region on Earth. The third course brought gasps from the assembled aliens. Velcanti grain that had been fermented for over a year, covered with fuzzy mold cultures that shifted color as they moved. The bread-like substance was served with spreads made from fruits that glowed with soft radiation. This is our most toxic biological waste, Fuzara whispered. We use industrial processing to dispose of grain this contaminated. To humans, it tastes like aged cheese, Chef Daehyun explained. The fermentation process creates complex flavors and beneficial bacteria that improve human digestive health. Course after course continued. Crystalline vegetables that should have dissolved organic tissue, fruits that generated electrical currents, nuts that contained compounds used by other species as industrial solvents. With each dish, the human delegation not only survived, but clearly enjoyed their meal. They discussed flavors, compared textures, and even requested seconds of some dishes. Dr. Choi Minho, who had coordinated the economic aspects of human expansion, raised his glass of fermented, stellar fruit juice for a toast. 6 months ago, humans were the newest members of galactic civilization. Today we operate colonies on over 60 worlds that other species could never inhabit. We process biological resources that generate millions of credits in trade value. Most importantly, we have proven that diversity of capability strengthens our entire community. Elder Vorthak's crystal form brightened to a warm golden color. When we first met humans, we feared they would poison themselves through ignorance. Instead, we discovered that what we consider poison, they consider nourishment. This has changed our understanding of biological possibility. The feast concluded with a dessert course that left the alien representatives speechless. Chef Daehyun had created a beautiful sculpture made entirely of foods that were deadly to every non-human species present. Crystalline fruits that sparkled like jewels, heat fruits that glowed like small suns, and fermented elements that shifted colors as they were consumed. This represents the new era of galactic cooperation, Chef Dehyun announced. Materials that once separated us now bring us together. Resources that were considered worthless now have value. Worlds that were abandoned can now be inhabited. The human delegation consumed their spectacular dessert. Representatives from dozens of species watched with expressions ranging from amazement to respect to pure wonder. Ocean Dream pulsed with colors of deep contemplation. You have shown us that impossibility is often simply lack of understanding. What seems dangerous to one species may be beneficial to another. Commander Sek stood up, his massive reptilian frame towering over the other delegates. The Kasek Empire formally recognizes humans as the bravest species in the galaxy. You consume death itself and make it into life. Not bravery, Ambassador Taman corrected with a smile. Just biology. Humans evolved to survive in a dangerous environment by eating foods that other creatures could not. We are simply applying those same survival skills on a galactic scale. Fuzara's golden eyes sparkled with what might have been admiration. Whatever you call it, you have given hope to species expansion programs that were abandoned centuries ago. Worlds we thought would never sustain life can now be colonized through human partnership. As the evening concluded, the representatives began discussing new partnership agreements. Species that had been reluctant to work with humans now competed to offer the most attractive terms for cooperation. The feast had accomplished its purpose. By demonstrating human dietary capabilities publicly, it had eliminated any remaining doubts about human claims. More importantly, it had shown the galaxy that human abilities were not a threat, but an opportunity for unprecedented expansion and cooperation. What happens next? Asked Jisoo as they watched the alien delegates file out of the hall, many of them still shaking their heads in amazement. Next, said Ambassador Taman, we change the galaxy, one world at a time. 1 year later, Ambassador Lee Taman stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, the newest and most ambitious construction project in galactic history. The station hung in space like a crystal flower, its sections representing architectural styles from 12 different species. Humanity had provided the central hub, but each allied species had contributed their own unique design elements. Through the massive windows, Taman watched the departure of the colony ship, New Soul, humanity's first joint venture with the Zerion Collective. The ship was heading to Kepler 442b, a planet that had been surveyed and abandoned 3 times by different species because its plant life produced acid strong enough to dissolve most known materials. Human colonists would establish agricultural facilities on Kepler 442b, while Zerion engineers managed the mineral extraction operations. The planet's deadly vegetation would be processed into synthetic nutrients for 17 different species, while the Zerion crystals growing in the acidic soil would provide materials for advanced technology throughout the galaxy. The first joint colony ship in galactic history, said Dr. Park Nara as she joined Taman at the observation window. She wore the uniform of the newly established Interspecies Biological Safety Council, an organization created to manage the expanding cooperation between humans and other species. Are you nervous about the mission? Taman asked. Excited, Nara corrected. 6 months of testing confirmed that humans can safely consume every plant species on Kepler 442b. Some of them provide nutritional benefits that do not exist anywhere else in the galaxy. The colonists will be healthier than most humans on Earth. Captain Song Hyejin approached from the command section of the observation deck. Her merchant fleet had grown to include 47 ships, all carrying human-processed biological materials to species throughout the galaxy. She had become one of the wealthiest traders in galactic civilization. The Kasek Empire just approved our expansion request, she reported. 12 more volcanic worlds with heat fruit forests. The demand for processed thermal nutrients has exceeded all projections. And the Velcanti? Taman asked. 15 new agricultural worlds, Song replied. They are particularly interested in our fermentation techniques. Human-processed Velcanti. Grain has become a luxury food throughout their territory. The success of human expansion had surprised everyone, including the humans themselves. In just 1 year, Human colonies had been established on over 100 worlds that other species considered uninhabitable. Each colony specialized in processing biological materials that were toxic to other species but nutritious to humans. The economic impact had transformed galactic civilization. Food security, once the limiting factor in expansion, was no longer a concern for most species. Synthetic nutrients processed by human colonies provided everything that alien species needed to establish sustainable settlements anywhere. Dr. Choi Minho joined them at the observation deck, carrying reports from the latest trade negotiations. He had been promoted to Director of Human Galactic Economic Development, overseeing partnerships with 37 different species. The Ankari Consortium wants to discuss exclusive agreements for 9 star systems, he reported. The biological materials in those systems contain compounds they need for their advanced medical technology. What are they offering in return? Song asked. Technology transfer agreements and full partnership in their expansion into the outer rim territories, Minho replied. It would make humans equal partners in the galaxy's most advanced civilization. Taman shook his head in amazement. A year ago, humans had been newcomers hoping to make peaceful contact with galactic civilization. Now they were essential partners in expansion efforts across multiple galactic regions. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. The holographic display showed Ensign Yu Ji-wan, who had just arrived on the morning transport from Earth. She was young, nervous, and clearly overwhelmed by her first sight of the massive station. "Welcome to Harmony Station, Ensign," Taman said warmly. "How was your journey?" "Incredible, sir," Ji-wan replied. "I studied the reports during transit, but seeing all of this in person is amazing. Are the stories true? Can humans really eat foods that are poison to other species?" "Would you like to find out?" Nara asked with a smile. "We are about to test samples from 3 new worlds that were recently surveyed. They made their way to the Cultural Exchange Center, a section of the station dedicated to introducing new arrivals to galactic diversity. The center featured exhibits from every known species, including interactive displays that allowed visitors to experience different planetary environments safely. At the center's heart was a permanent exhibit titled, "The Day They Said It Was Inedible." It displayed the original Vorthak root that Taman had first tasted, along with testimonials from representatives of 42 different species, describing their initial reactions to human dietary abilities. Elder Vorthak had contributed a crystal recording that played his voice when visitors approached. "When humans first reached for Vorthak root, we feared they would die from ignorance. Instead, they showed us that impossibility often comes from limited perspective. What destroys one species may nourish another." Commander Sek's message played next. "Humans consume the fire that burns our flesh and call it spicy food. They drink acids that dissolve our scales and describe the flavor as refreshing. They are the bravest species in the galaxy, or the most foolish. Perhaps there is no difference." Ji-wan read each testimonial with growing amazement. They really thought human dietary abilities were impossible? "Most still find it difficult to believe," Jisoo admitted. She had been promoted to Director of Human Cultural Integration, helping new human arrivals adapt to galactic civilization. But the evidence is undeniable. They entered the testing laboratory where samples from newly discovered worlds awaited analysis. Dr. Nara had established protocols for safely introducing humans to alien biology, starting with microscopic samples and gradually increasing exposure. The first sample came from a world called Thornheart, where crystalline trees grew, fruits that generated electrical discharges. The second was from Mistral Prime, covered in fungi that produced hallucinogenic compounds deadly to most neural systems. The third came from a desert world, where cacti-like plants stored concentrated sulfuric acid. "Standard procedure," Nara explained as she prepared the samples. "Microscopic exposure first, then cellular testing, then small taste samples if initial results are positive." Ji-wan watched nervously as Nara tested each sample. The results were consistent with previous discoveries. Human cellular structure showed no damage from any of the supposedly deadly materials. In fact, preliminary analysis suggested nutritional benefits from all 3 samples. "Your turn, Ensign," Taman said, offering her a tiny sample of the electrical fruit. Jiwan hesitated, then remembered her training. Human dietary resilience was not theory anymore. It was established scientific fact. She placed the sample in her mouth. The taste was sharp and metallic, with an actual electrical sensation that made her teeth tingle. But there was no pain, no burning, no tissue damage. After swallowing, she felt a slight increase in alertness and energy. "It tastes like sucking on a battery," she reported, "but not unpleasant, actually kind of energizing." "Excellent," Nara said, recording the results. "The electrical compounds appear to enhance human neural conductivity. This could be valuable for species that use bioelectric technology." As they completed the testing, alerts began sounding throughout the station. Not emergency alerts, but celebration signals. The holographic displays showed incoming ships from dozens of different species, all heading toward Harmony Station. "What is happening?" Jiwan asked. Captain Song checked the communication channels. First successful harvest reports from all 17 joint colony worlds. Every single partnership has exceeded production projections. The galaxy's food security crisis is officially over. The observation deck filled with representatives from multiple species as the celebration began. Beings that had been enemies for centuries worked together on projects made possible by human dietary abilities. Old conflicts were forgotten as species focused on expansion and cooperation. Elder Vorthak's crystal form pulsed with warm golden light. 1 year ago, we gathered to warn humans about deadly poison. Today we celebrate the end of galactic hunger. Who could have predicted such transformation? Ocean Dream of the Deep Current clan pulsed with deep blue colors of contentment. "My people have established their first permanent colonies in 300 years. Human-processed nutrients from toxic algae worlds allow us to survive in environments we could never inhabit before." Fuzara of the Velcanti Federation raised a glass of fermented fruit juice in salute. "The Velcanti celebrate human courage. You eat our nightmares and turn them into dreams of expansion." As the celebration continued around them, Taman found himself thinking about that first day on Nexus Prime. He remembered reaching for the Vorthak root, the horror in Elder Vorthak's voice, the certainty that humans would die from their ignorance. Instead, they had discovered that human weakness was actually their greatest strength. The ability to consume dangerous foods, evolved from Earth's harsh environment, had become the key to galactic expansion and cooperation.